Our speaker today is Sister Jill Reuber, who grew up in Southern Indiana and has a bachelor's degree in elementary education from St. Mary the Woods College, as well as a master's in education with her emphasis in reading from the University of Southern Indiana. She entered the Sisters of St. Benedict in August of 2003 and made her temporary profession in April of 2006. Her perpetual profession was made October 1st of 2011. She has been an elementary school teacher from 2006 to 2019 when she started her current job. She has taught first grade, second grade, fourth grade, and sixth grade religion. That takes some energy. She was also a learning specialist, and in June of 2019, Sister Anita Louise asked her to be the full-time vocation director. She is on the monastic council here at the monastery, as well as being a Midwest member area coordinator for NRVC. I'm going to let you explain NRVC. She's also on committees for numerous diocesan vocations. And in her free time, she likes to watch football and basketball because she did say she was from Indiana. She also likes to crochet, embroider, read a good book, and spend time with her family. So we thank you for spending time with us today, Sister Jill.
So while Sister Kathy's pulling up my PowerPoint, I'll tell you a little bit about what NRVC is. That's the National Religious Vocation Conference, and we belong to it as a community. And the neat thing about it is that we can get a lot of, like, these prayer cards are from that conference. And being a member area coordinator, we're in different areas because it's an international conference. And so I'm kind of leading the meetings for the Midwest area with another sister from a different community. You are probably wondering, why in the world is the vocation director speaking to me as an oblate? You know, I went to Mel and Elaine a few years ago and said I'd like to speak to the Oblates, because as a member of this community and as a vocation director, I really believe that you all can help the community, and you can also build your ranks as an oblate with what I'm going to share with you today. But I think the main thing is that I really would hope that you are open to inviting women who you think might have a call to religious life to come look at us. And also, you all are out there more than we are. As we are getting smaller, we are not as out there in the world as what you are. And so you can spread our charism also, just like we do, because you all follow the rule of Benedict to the best of your ability, just like we do. And so that's why I asked to speak to you today. So I'm going to share with you some information. Probably once or every year, maybe every 2 years, they do a study on recent religious vocations. And so I want to share with you some of the information there. I'm going to go back a slide, maybe. Yeah, there we go. So in this study, they had, oops, sorry, I went the wrong way. Technology is wonderful when it works. They talked to 508 different religious orders, and they reported that 508 of them had no one professing perpetual vows in 2023. Okay, now this is men, women, monastic, apostolic, cloistered, non-cloistered. It's all the religious orders. From their study, 1 in 10 had a perpetual profession in 2023. And 23 major superiors report that 2 to 15 they had 2 to 15 perpetual professions in 2023. That's a lot. And there are 144 newly professed members in 2023. That is very good in today's world. Age. Oh, I want to go. Some of this information, when I first read it, it made me feel like, oh boy, the religious life is getting smaller and smaller. But I also think about the hope that this brings me, and I hope it brings you hope, that there are perpetual professions happening. There are people looking into it. And I would say Benedictine life is even a little probably smaller than these numbers. So this is everybody. The Benedictine life is probably even less than these numbers. Okay, thank you. Age.
A little help from my friend.
So what's community for? So the average newly professed in 2023, the average age is 36, which has gone up. I was 23 when I entered. And so I think Sister Kathy was in her 20s when she entered. So the age of a woman and professed is going up a little bit. And we also see that in marriage. Young people are getting married later than before. And the youngest is 24. Right now in our community, I am pointing my efforts towards those that are between 30 and 40. I won't turn anyone younger than that away, but I just think that that's where our community is at this point. Our 2 novices, Sister Katie and Sister Cecilia Marie, one's 37 and one's 38. And the oldest was 78. I wasn't going to put this in here, but I have a note for this one. We do not discern with someone over the age of 40. Unless it's a particular case. And say they maybe started discerning with me at 40, but it's taking a while and they might be 43 by the time they enter, that's fine. But we found that it's a harder transition the older you get into community. Yeah. And so we like to keep it at the age of 40. You wouldn't believe how many women that are 60 and above contact me and want to enter. I do know some Benedictine houses that do accept women over the older. They accept any age. And so I send that woman to them if I really think she would be a good religious, or I send them to our website to look at our Oblate page, or I send them the Oblate brochure and say, you can't enter as a committed vowed member, but you can come as an oblate. And so I encourage that. Some of the older women who are discerning, they're lonely and they want to be taken care of. And that's why they're looking into religious life. And so it just depends why they're looking. 3 and 4 were born in the US. 2 and 3 of these perpetually professed members are Caucasian, European American, or white. And 1 in 10 or less identified as Asian, Hispanic, African American, or mixed race. We are working on this as a community. I don't think the community is quite ready to receive a whole bunch of young women who are not white. at this point. But we're really taking steps to work on learning other cultures and different things like that so that we can be open to different cultures. But it's a growing thing for us as a community. And 9 out of 10 of these have been Catholic since birth, which is not surprising. There is a bigger acceptance of those who have come into the church through RCIA. Once they've come into the church through RCIA, they have to wait 2 years before they could enter a religious order because they're so on fire with their faith. We want them to get the parish experience and the community there before they would enter a community. And 9 in 10 reported that both of their parents were Catholic. And 3 in 10 have a relative who is a priest or religious. That really surprised me that 3 of them said that they had a relative who was a priest or religious. And almost all of them were raised by their biological parents. And 9 in 10 were raised by a married couple. 97% had at least one sibling. I find that it's probably easier to live in a community if you grew up with siblings. Went too fast. And 26% were the eldest in their family. That didn't surprise me either. I think it's a lot of leadership roles and kind of doing that they're the eldest in their family. "51% of the respondents attended a Catholic elementary school, and 46% attended a Catholic high school. I think that's a pretty good number. I am not one of those, though. I did not attend Catholic elementary school or Catholic high school. But most ones that do enter these days have attended a Catholic. I do fall in this one, though. 43% attended a Catholic college. And 1 in 6 reported being homeschooled. That number's getting larger also of being homeschooled. I have a contact right now that some homeschool in Evansville, they're going to come for a tour in a day here. So it's becoming a little bit larger population. And 3 in 5 participated in a religious education program in their parish. So if they attended public school, then most of them did their religious ed program. I'm just going to get them all up there. So we also have to remember, and this is very different than what it has been in the past, because I believe that women and men are entering older in life. Most of them are highly educated. Instead of entering and coming right after high school, they have degrees. So 2 out of 10 of them already have a graduate degree when they enter their religious communities. 6 in 10 have a bachelor's degree. Okay. We do ask that a woman have at least a bachelor's degree when she comes here to Ferdinand, or 2 to 3 years of work experience. Most of the women, I think, have a bachelor's degree. And then most responding did not report that educational debt delayed their application for entrance. That's a big thing these days also, is that a lot of these young people have a lot of educational debt, and some religious communities cannot take on that debt. And so some people who are discerning have to work off that debt before they can enter their religious community. We can take a little bit on, but we don't want, like I was talking with a woman, she had $70,000 of educational debt. And it's like, oh, we can't take that much on. So you work with the vocation director and we help them. They cannot have credit card debt though. They have to be debt-free except for educational debt to be able to enter. So 4 out of 5 had a work experience prior to entering. Most common ministry that they did in church was, a lot of them were altar servers, youth ministry, lectors. 9 out of 10 participated in 1 or more religious programs or activities, retreats, different things like that. This first one, 8 in 10 participate in Eucharistic adoration. This is a conversation that we've been having a lot in community because a lot of young people, they love Eucharistic adoration. So we've added it in here once a month on our sabbatical Saturdays. We have Eucharistic adoration. They love spending time with the Blessed Sacrament. 7 in 10 recited the rosary, participated in a retreat, and had spiritual direction. I always encourage a woman to get a spiritual director when they're discerning. So they're not just talking to, well, now it's not going to work at all. Sister Kathy, will you just hit it for me?
Yeah. I'll put it back together and see what we can do.
So I recommend spiritual direction because I am their vocation director, not their spiritual director. Some of them get it a little confused and they think I am their spiritual director. I want them to walk with someone else as a spiritual director while they're walking with me in discernment. And I know it gets a little bit confusing because I'm also learning how to be a spiritual director. So thank you. So I have to keep those 2 things separate. Can you go back, Kathy? Thank you. Most of them were 18 years old when they first considered religious life. These 2 things I think is very important that we need to remember. 8 in 10 reported that someone encouraged them to consider a religious vocation. That's my challenge for you all, that if you know a woman or even a man who you think should be a priest, encourage them. Okay. And 55% reported that they were discouraged. And women were more likely than men. That one made me very sad that people were discouraged. And I think it's because sometimes people don't know what religious life is. And they just know the pre-Vatican II times. And so they're not going to encourage. And respondents report having known the members of their religious institute for 4 years before they entered. So I keep telling the community, I met this woman, I've met this woman, and they want to say, well, when are they entering? They don't just enter right away. They have to get to know us and visit us. And then 94% had participated in at least 1 vocational discernment programs. So they like to participate in that. So I'm going to give you some opportunities to talk. When I made this presentation, you were sitting in tables over there, but I have a feeling that you can make this work. So your first, and I have the questions for you at your table. But the first question is, how does this information help you to think about talking to women that might be interested in community, or men and women who might be interested in the Oblate program? So I'm going to give you maybe about this, since you only have one question, maybe 5-6 minutes. Would anyone like to share anything they discussed?
We discussed about sharing your experiences as being an Oblate and what it means to you, and it being a way of life in this tumultuous time, to give you a little more peace, to work through your parish, always with donuts and coffee, to bring them in after mass, just a half-hour presentation with open discussion. We're not experts at going into religious life, so my little group really focused on being an Oblate and just the benefits that you receive from it, and give them information and then follow up.
Hello. So our discussion was just mainly about like how the sisters have evolved and how the convent has evolved. And, used to the sisters were more out in the community. They taught at the schools, they were down at the parishes, they were so forth and so on. And that's how the public thinks of the sisters. They remember them like how they were back when, how they were when we were in school. And then they think, oh gosh, when I was in second grade, I got in trouble from that sister and that sister. And it's like, but you have to tell them like, it's funny, but it's like people think like that. And you have to tell them like, think of the other teachers you had, how they were, trying to, tell you what, you should and shouldn't do. But then you get older and then you become friends with them and stuff, and you see them on a different level. So I don't think that they have a good picture of how things have evolved. And like I said, for me, I worked up here when I was in high school in 1981, and I've had several jobs since then. And like I said, there was no air conditioning on the third floor. We worked hard, and that was my favorite job to this day. And I've had several jobs and made a lot more money, but the sisters were here and they guided me and they prayed for me. They prayed me through nursing school. You sisters that know me know that. So, there's just so much that a lot of people don't know. And I feel like in the last few years that the sisters have really been reaching out more and having more retreats and inviting more people. And I always tell people when they come, go take a tour, meet the sisters. And if someone came to me and said something like, I think I might, have this desire, I would, am I mixing questions up? I can't remember, but if someone came to me and thought maybe they had a desire or wanted to know something about it, I know a lot of the sisters, because like I said, I've been up here since 1981. So I would just reach out to whoever I thought would take them for a tour or give them a talk or do something, and then they could lead them to whoever they needed to take the next steps with. But I could tell them my experience. So for my experiences has been good. I've belonged to everything I can to support the sisters. I love them. I try to be here as much as I can. And that's my experience. I don't know what else to say. I'm a little biased, but like I said, I truly believe that, a lot of the public that is not up here is just not educated on that. Like they don't know the sisters that well. They just see the convent on the hill, and, and I keep trying to tell them, go to mass, they have mass at 10:30, go to mass. You can go and pray with them, and different events and things that they have. They used to have a social every year. So, everybody used to come up. We don't have the socials anymore, where there's not enough sisters and public to support the socials. So they really don't know that the sisters that well, or their way of life. They, again, exactly like Jill said, they're thinking pre-Vatican II. Well, exactly. And that's what we, well, and you mentioned that, and that's what we do. There's a group of us that go, or there's some of them that go, I mean, they're out in the public, they're, at Agave's at the Mexican restaurant and stuff, and the people know them. So like I said, it just depends where you are and where you're from as to what experience you have with them.
This past week, a woman came over with Father Dennis, and she is the vice president at Marty University in Yankton, South Dakota. That's a Benedictine university founded by the Yankton sisters. And she was talking about in the student body, the minority now are not Catholic. The majority of the students have no religious affiliation, but they are very interested and they want community. So now they are very active in the university of promoting oblates within the university, and they have 50 staff members and students who are interested. She is getting her doctorate degree, and she's writing it on, it's a combination of community, Benedictine life, and college activities. So, the people we're looking for, most of them are not active in a religion.
So our little group, I think I did most of the talking, so that's why I'm up here. But I found it very interesting because I'm one of these analytical guys that started looking at all this and said, where's the Pareto chart that shows, who's the groups that we need to go, that you would want to go after that fall in that 30 to 40 age group and all that. So we had a discussion about, trying to identify those people that fall into those groups.
When you
That
get
are-
that figured out, will you let me know?
Okay, we'll work on that later. But I did recall everybody has their own journey of how they got to become an oblate. And generally speaking, most people have gone through other programs or activities or whatever before they decide to become an oblate. Because I think my experience is, I think I've gotten more mature. I hope I have, as I've gone through my journey, because I did tech, which is Teenagers Encounter with Christ. So when our kids were growing up, they went through that program and we also participated in it. And then I went through a program called Cursil, which is a diocese thing. Okay. And then I went through a thing called Chirp, which is a parish, retreat. And then I became an oblate. So it was like stepping stones to get there. So the thought is, and I would think if you're wanting to join the community here, it's not like you woke up one day and said, I want to be a sister. You have gone through all these different, and you've got a lot of information there that says where. So in the lieu of trying to determine where do I find these people, there's some ideas there, and I'm sure that's how you create your plan on how to attack going forward. The same, I think, holds true for the oblates. I think it's more of a mature group. And not to say you can't have younger people, but I think the bulk of what you're going to get is that 30 to 40 or above, range or whatever. So that was just kind of some thoughts that we had at our discussion.
Thanks, Mel.
I just wanted to piggyback off a question Mel asked, which is, figure out who are these people? How many here are over 55? Yeah. Okay. So those people are our kids and our grandkids. And I'm thinking back, my younger brothers and sisters didn't go to Catholic school. There was, like 9 years gap. And they didn't have Catholic school, and none of their kids went to Catholic school. So what they know about sisters is the stories they hear us tell. And what stories do we tell? My uncle got kicked out of first grade for swearing at a sister when she smacked him on the hand with a ruler. We don't talk about we tell the funny stories, but people have this perception that, oh, the sisters, we were terrified of the sisters. Well, I was, because I was that little 5-year-old that never wanted to do anything wrong. So I was terrified of the sisters, even though I never did anything wrong, because that's the perception I thought I was supposed to have. But we need to talk to people, especially younger people in our families, and we need to talk to them more about the positive sides. And particularly when we're talking Benedictine sisters, because that's very different. I mean, like I say, I was terrified of the sisters. I had Sisters of Providence, and they weren't really strict on us. They were kind women. And but that's not the fun part. That's not the funny part. So I think we all have to do a better job when we're talking about our experiences when we were little and how, really, there were all these great things that we did get to do because we went to Catholic schools and because we had that exposure to the sisters. If you're in a community like I am, where we don't have a convent, we don't have sisters in our schools, those younger people have absolutely no idea what vowed religious women are like, because they don't have them out in the community. They don't, I'd go to court and there's Sister Mary Judith translating. I don't have that now. So I think we kind of have to think about in our own families, how we talk and what we do, because it's those kids and their friends and their generation that we can bring in and hopefully give them a better experience. Things like the mother-daughter tea that Sister Rosemary was thinking about. I wish I had known sooner.
We did it, it was last weekend.
I know, but I mean, when those kinds of
It's going to be an annual thing.
when those kinds of events come up, when I did see it, I thought, I really should have tried to get a couple of my nieces to come up, and do that. So something to think about.
I have 2 comments to branch off of what Stephanie just said and kind of what Mel said. I think about my own parents. So I grew up in Celestine. My parents went to school with the sisters from this community in full habit, and I had to do a lot of educating them that we aren't like what we were when they had them in school. Many of you know Sister Sylvia. My mom had her in school. And so I think just like Stephanie said of educating, I go to a lot of schools and speak and share vocation stories. And I go to religious ed programs. And I always ask the kids, I say, you can be really honest with me, guys. How many of you thought I would be wearing a black veil and a black dress all the way to my feet? They all raise their hand. Because they've all probably seen Sound of Music and Sister Act. And then my next question is to them, how many of you thought I was going to be old? They all raised their hand. So then I help them realize that I am who I am, and that we all don't wear the habit, and we're all not old. Okay. And then I pull out my cell phone, and it just makes them all fall over that sister has a cell phone, kind of things. But I think that's important for it. So I read an article, and it talked about the 3 C's of vocations. And I think you can also use this for our Oblate program also. But the first one is creating interest. If you go back and you think about, how did you learn about the Oblates of Monastery Immaculate Conception? What created that interest in you? Were you personally invited? Did you find us on our website? Did you have printed information? Did you have opportunities to meet us? And so we do all the same things with women who are discerning. Do they have our website? Do they have printed information? Do they have opportunities to meet us? Okay, Kathy? And then we go to cultivating interest. So once a woman comes or a person comes to be an oblate, Sister Betty stole some of my thunder already today, that she says that her and Shirley talk and journey with those people who are interested. We do the same thing here. It's more direct. I Zoom with them. I talk to them on the phone. Each person's journey is a little bit different. Okay. When our novices were discerning, they blew my phone up with texts, with questions and comments and thoughts and prayer requests. Okay. I have a woman who's pretty serious now. I hear nothing from her, except for when we set up a time and we Zoom and we talk. So we have to be with each person at their own space where they're at. Most 30 and 40-year-olds would rather text me a serious conversation than they will talk to me on the phone. Sister Katie and I texted for an hour one night when she was discerning, a pretty serious conversation about religious life, all done through text. I loved it because then I had time to think of my responses. And she didn't see my face, so it was worked out. And then the last three is of the C's is closing on someone's interest, helping a candidate come to informed decision one way or another. And I think, Lisa, you're in that spot now of really discerning. You've met us, you've spent some time with us. Is this something I want to continue on? We ask a woman to come and visit at least 2 times before she can start the application process. Okay, she has to come here to Ferdinand because you have to know you're becoming a monastic. You got to meet the community and where you're going to be living your first 2-3 years. And I have to add that they have to come to Ferdinand, Indiana to see where it's at. You have to ask Sister Katie sometime. Target is an hour away. Chick-fil-A is an hour away. Starbucks is now 20 minutes. And both of our novices grew up and lived in the city. So they're also discerning where. Both of them came to visit the same time the first time. They discerned during COVID, so their discernment was rather long because they couldn't come and visit. And so once they could finally come and visit, both of them said to me, they stayed in the hospitality center, Sister Jill, there's no sirens here. It's too quiet. I'm used to it at this point. It is like, well, unless a sports team wins something. So then I had to explain that to them, and they didn't get it until they were moved here and experienced it. But Sister Kathy. So now I would like you to take to discussion 2. Women are still being called. People are still being called to be oblates. So there's about 4 questions for you to think about and talk about. I'm going to give you about maybe 8 minutes this time to discuss. You can stay with the same group or you can move groups if you want. I shared with, I don't know if all of you know that I'm just as a side note, that I'm a triplet. So there's 3 of us and 2 girls and a boy. So my triplet sister is actually a sister of St. Benedict in Beech Grove, Indiana. So I entered in 2003. She didn't enter there until 2012. She went and bought a house and lived her life and then decided that she wanted religious life. And then my brother is married and he has 3 boys and he lives in Celestine. So a little bit about some attitudes on vocations. So women who are discerning, and it's probably the same with those that are looking. Oh, the women that are looking, they want to be stretched. They want to be challenged to serve God and others with the community life, serving as support that allows us to reach beyond ourselves in the service of God through prayer and work. So many women who are discerning really want the prayer, they want the community, and then they want the service. Or I like to call it work, because young people use service as like going out and putting a roof on, or doing service work. So that's why I like to use what Benedict says, work, which we have to have in order to go on. So women have in front of them a rich array of opportunities that for most part were unavailable in earlier generations. They can minister in the church without being a religious sister. If you think about some of the ministries you all do. I think in earlier generations, they had to have sister in front of their name to do some of those things. So a woman today has a lot of opportunities. They also have a lot of different religious communities to look at. Even if you think about just Benedictine houses, there's more than, I'm getting this off the top of my head, so it may not, don't quote me on it. There are more probably than 40 different women religious houses just in the United States. So say a woman decides she wants to be Benedictine, well, then she's got to look at all the Benedictine houses. Because we all have the same charism, but we follow that charism differently. And so they have to see where they fit. Just like my sister, she came and visited here. She visited Beech Grove. And then she had to call and tell me that she was entering Beech Grove and not here. And that was fine. She felt at home up there. And that she wouldn't always be Jill's sister there, even though they still call us the wrong name. And so women today like to keep options open and avoid premature commitments. So they like to keep their options open. So sometimes discernment might take a little longer than what it used to. A lot of women aren't like how I did it. I discerned during college, graduated college, entered that August. Well, now when women are entering in 35, 36, maybe they own a house, maybe they own a car, maybe they rent an apartment, and they have to figure all that out also. And work with the vocation director that never had to do any of that. So God bless Katie and Cecilia, because they said to me, how do we get out of our apartment lease? Let me get back to you on that. Called Sister Anita. How do they get out of the apartment lease? So then I had to do some research of how did they get out of an apartment lease? So it's just different in today's world. And so to help with these, we need to present ourselves as people who have benefited immensely from our vocation, have found peace, mission, love, and a passion for the gospel and for God through our decision to become women religious, or you as oblates, to share those benefits that you get from being an oblate of us. And we need to accentuate the things we might offer that they can't easily acquire as a layperson. And for example, one of those things is, as a laywoman, do you have the opportunity to live with 10 other women who all believe the same things you believe, or most of the same things you believe? And range from an age, the formation floor, their youngest member is Sister Katie I think she's 37, and Sister Charlene Ann is their oldest member at about 82 something. And they have the range. So, and we also have to help women to see that their formation as a period of discernment of their life. Just when they come as a postulant, they're not in fully yet. It's still discernment. And I think you have some of those same stages as becoming an oblate. And we also must remember that they bring real world experiences well beyond just their family of origin. And they are by no means a blank slate or an unmolded lump of clay waiting to be formed, like I was when I came. Okay? They have experiences. Okay? And they have a life lived. I don't know why that slide's in there twice, but you can go to the next one. Thank you. So I have one more set of discussion questions for you of what can you do to help women see that the Sisters of St. Benedict of Ferdinand is an option? And what can I do to help encourage men and women to become oblates? And I'm only going to give you about 4 minutes. Well, I wanted to, I have a couple more slides, but on the back table back there, I brought some vocation material for you to take with you. Feel free to put it in your parishes, wherever. If you need more, you can always contact me. What's back there is, I have these stickers that have quotes from the rule. They're kind that you put like on your laptop or your water bottle. You can take some for your own if you want them. And then in the Ziploc bags, I call them the Fab Four Benedictines. So it's Benedict, Scholastica, Gertrude, and Hildegard. And they're also stickers. There's a card back there that looks like this on this side, but it has a Benedictine medal taped to it, but it tells you what the Benedictine medal is. So that's back there. If you've ever been on our website and have gone to where it says Rule of Benedict, and Sister Jane Michelle has written a beautiful little synopsis of the rule. We also have them in flyer form, and I love sending this to women who are discerning because it's a great synopsis of the rule. So there's some of those back there. And then there's the big one, and this is Becoming a Sister of St. Benedict, and it says all the stages and what a woman needs to do to become a Sister of St. Benedict. There's also ink pens back there. Feel free to take some. And then feel free to take your prayer card. This prayer card was made by where they include all religious orders. When I pray it, where it says associates, I crossed my copy out and put oblates so that I pray for you all. So when Shirley and I talked about what to share, she was curious on the stages of becoming a perpetually professed sister. So I'm going to end with just kind of what a woman has to do to end up perpetually professed. So the first thing they do is they contact me to begin discussing our life. We either have a phone call, we Zoom, we just kind of, I have a book study I run once a month that we're doing, Joan Chittister's Wisdom Distilled from the Daily. It's always a good one to do. So then they meet with me several times. Like I said earlier, they have to come to the monastery for at least 2 visits. And that's spending the night and seeing what our life is like. This second step could take up to 2 or more years because it just depends. And then after that, they can start the application process. The application process takes about a year. It's a long process. Then they are accepted and they enter as a postulant, and they're actually called postulant in their name. They do not receive the title sister quite yet. And the prioress is the one who decides whether a woman can enter. We have an admissions committee that meets and talks and interviews the person. I am out of that conversation, and then they recommend to the prioress, but the prioress has the final say of whether a woman can enter or not. After they are a postulant, they become what's called a canonical novice. This is when they take on the title sister. This is a time some women change their names. Both of our novices changed their names or tweaked them a little bit. This is a year and a day because it's canonical. This is the time that they really can't leave the monastery. They can't just get in a car and go to Walmart. They can't just go to Dairy Queen, kind of things. After they're a novice, they can make temporary monastic profession, and that's for 3 years. This is a time they get an outside ministry or an inside ministry, depends. Most of us renew that that temporary profession for another 3 years. But between the 5th and the 6th year, they start the process of hopefully making perpetual profession. The whole community decides on temporary monastic profession, like we vote. To go from postulant novice, the monastic council decides. And then to make perpetual profession, it's the whole community also. So let's see, I entered in 2003 and didn't make perpetual profession until 2011. So I'm the long-term person, but they added a second-year novitiate in on us.
So when they have their 25th Jubilee and stuff, is that?
Starting at temporary profession.
Okay. I was gonna say, wow. You know, if you're doing the 3 years and then renewing, that's 6 years, you know, and you've been there.
You can renew that 3 times. So you could be temporary professed for 9 years if you want.
Will count as towards your 25
Yes,
years.
yes, yeah.
So I was gonna say, wow, you're here like 6 or 7 years before they.
It's like a really long engagement.
And I get it, I was just saying, compared to, you know, the way sister used to.
Well, and I think it's a little, the temporary monastic profession is important to have that time because that's when because as a postulant novice, you live here at Ferdinand. You get your meals cooked. You're very spoiled as a postulant novice. As a temporary professed, you have to figure out how to balance your life of ministry and living the life and prayer. And you may go move out on mission and have to cook. I entered right out of college. I didn't know how to cook when I moved to Rockport, those poor sisters. I'm a little better now, but so they did. Any questions?
At each level, what's the success rate is not the right term of women who retention?
Retention?
What's the retention?
50%. Yeah, we hope 100 because if you only have 2 novices and then 1 leaves, it's kind of hard. But Katie and Cecilia Marie were the first postulants in 5 years. So they got the brunt of excitement that we have postulants. And so, yeah, COVID was in there. That kind of messed us all up a little bit, but even if you think about, you probably heard the Nashville Dominicans, they're getting like 15, 16 women a year. They still only have a 50% retention rate. So. Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you.